excited to be back here. We have this amazing panel, International Women's Day. You know, International Women's Day is a global day to celebrate the social, economic, cultural, and political achievements of women. And I think the amazing women we have here today to talk about, you know, their journey, their careers, and their history with Topcoder is I'm looking forward to this. I'd like to introduce, starting out with Seeta Kaur, Topcoder community member and design co-pilot. We have Ariel Shields, a product manager at Topcoder. And we have Colleen Lavin, technical project manager at Topcoder. And Davar, Ardalan, IVOW founder and chief storytelling officer at IVOW, a Topcoder customer. So very excited to have all of you here. Thank you for joining.
Thank you.
So starting out, I would love for this to be, you know, all of you can ask each other questions. I'd like this just to be, you know, relaxed. We kind of talk about different topics. I will ask you all questions, but, you know, the more that, you know, all of you talk amongst and share your stories with everyone here is definitely definitely encouraged. So I'd like to start out, Seeta, you know, as a Topcoder member, you know, you have a very interesting journey, you know, coming from Indonesia, currently living in the UK. Would you be able to tell us a little bit about your background and kind of like your journey with Topcoder?
Yeah. So I started at Topcoder 2008. I'm coming from a very small town between two active volcanoes. So believe me, even internet, we are very far behind. So I went to the city and people told me like about, oh, there is this platform where you can try because I heard that you like design. I'm just like, oh yeah, I do like it. So it was such a great discovery because after that, it's just only good thing happened after. I would say Topcoder is amazing platform that allows me, because I'm Asian and I can speak from my cultures. We have not have much privilege. You know, there are so much barriers being a woman there. So being in Topcoders, apparently my gender is not even relevant. I am allowed to go as high as I want. There is no limit, you know. So for me, this is just like an amazing opportunities. I've been competing. First time I've traveled abroad also from Topcoders. I am going to Las Vegas. It was amazing because, I mean, I can even count how many of my family members probably flying abroad. So, you know, when they say like first time you fly, you go to Las Vegas, and it's like, what is this? You know, it was such an amazing journey, and I can't thank Topcoder enough because you are creating a platform for people from all walk of life, that everyone's have equal opportunities. Your gender, your background, your race, doesn't matter. You know, you can do it here. You have your opportunities. So that's pretty much my journey with Topcoder.
Thank you. And, you know, without women like you in our community, obviously Topcoder wouldn't be possible. So thank you for being here. Colleen, you've been with Topcoder here for a couple of years, and you've started out, I think Topcoder might have been one of your first jobs out of school. So could you tell us a little bit about your journey? Oh, Colleen.
Oh, yeah. So
yep.
We're good? Okay, I'm as close to my computer as I can be without eating it. All right. So I've been at Topcoder for about 3 years now. I think 3 years this week. Yay. And Topcoder was my first non-internship tech job. So I freelanced for a while, but I actually got to Topcoder because I used to be obsessed with hackathons. There was a 6-month period where I went to almost a hackathon a weekend, and one of my sleep schedule was a mess because these were in-person hackathons, but it was some of the most fun that I've ever had. And one hackathon, let me see, I have a prop here. One hackathon was a really, really weird one. The first 3 days took place on a bus, and the last two were a pitch competition. Weirdest hackathon of all time. And I don't know if any of you listen to podcasts at all, but Gimlet Media decided to send along a reporter. And it was supposed to be a 1-episode little filler thing, but they decided instead to make it a 5-episode podcast season. And so they ended the season. That is my prop. They ended it right when I was starting to look for a new job because I was freelancing at the time. And they ended the season by saying, hire Colleen. And our CTO, Mess, I don't know if you guys know Mess, but he is a huge podcast fan. Giant. And he reached out. The rest is history. When I heard that I could be involved with a community like this,
yes,
how could you not?
I do recall Mess. I think talking about this amazing woman that he found who's doing all this podcast. So that's amazing. Ariel, so your background here is product manager, product development. So how'd you get started in tech and end up at Topcoder?
That's a great question. Unlike Colleen, Mess did not find me through a podcast. I am not cool enough to be featured on one. But my story in getting involved in tech is a little bit accidental. I didn't start my career out intending to go into tech. It actually had been something that had never entered my mind. Actually, I was actively avoiding it because growing up, my dad was a CIO. And I would listen to him talk and be like, this sounds awful. I don't want to do this. And so I had started off down a very, very different path. I went to school for psychology and I worked as a crisis counselor for a few years. I went into the business world and was working actually at Target Corporate in their buying department. So again, not anything tech oriented. And when I was there, a need came up in that merchandising space to design a new system to help them manage all of their factory relationships. And I came up through there and I was in the right place at the right time. And so that was my first tech project. And I realized, okay, maybe I was wrong. This actually is pretty dang cool. You get to work with a lot of interesting people. You get to kind of play a lot of different hats when you're sitting in the product space. You know, you get to think a little bit about design. You get to think a little bit functionally about what's the most efficient ways to build things. And from there, that was the start of my journey. I realized that I actually really loved it. You know, my dad now kind of gets to gloat and be like, oh, see, I wasn't lame growing up. And now that's history. I've been in the product space for about the last 8 years. And I found Topcoder when I was looking for a job about 3 years ago. And Colleen is just a little bit more seasoned than me. I joined about 3 months after her. So excited to be here and get to work with all of these amazing people at this company.
Awesome. I guess we have some anniversaries to celebrate here shortly, huh? So, and now Davar. So IVOW founder and also veteran journalist from NPR. I'd love for you to tell us, you know, what you're doing with IVOW. It's amazing with the data, and of course your experience so far with Topcoder.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Adam. It's so exciting to see you, Ariel, Seeta, and Colleen, and looking forward to working with you, hopefully, in this next round of one of our projects. Very briefly, it was Geneva at the AI for Good Summit in 2019 when we at IVOW, that stands for Intelligent Voices of Wisdom, and we encourage companies to bring inclusive data sets into designing their products. My background is I'm a journalist, as you said, and so we were looking at combining traditional storytelling with conversational AI. So it's a very exciting space. But back in Geneva, we brought together a group of AI scientists and storytellers. We flew them in from Tonga, from many different parts of the world. And one of the things that we talked about was the lack of inclusive data sets around not just global communities, but also stories of women. So Mariana Lin, who is behind she's the chief writer for Siri at the time she was, She said, you know, I really want an AI one day to tell me about women in mythology from Chinese heritage. That's what gives me power. That's what gives me my superpower. Why is it that AI doesn't know our history? Why is it that AI doesn't understand what gives me passion, or, you know, what inspires me? So in the last year and a half, we've been working together, and this summer with Topcoder, we did a data ideation challenge when we looked at public data sets around women, and there were 7 prize winners. And it was really revealing to see the lack of publicly available data sets on stories on women. It's appalling. And the ones that are out there, for example, the Pantheon data set was primarily focused on women who are identify as pornographic actors and models. It was actually shocking to see the lack of public data sets on achievements. And so we're excited to launch this week, actually, with Topcoder, our project Hypatia Stories, which is basically crowdsourcing stories about women in data and artificial intelligence. So I'm looking forward to sharing more with you. But when I was in Geneva, somebody said to me, you know what, you need to look up Topcoder. I think they might be a really great collaborator for you. And I had honestly never heard of you, but this last year and a half has been remarkable. And I really look forward to working with some of the women on your team.
Awesome. Thank you. And I'm very excited by, you know, the data set, and of course, seeing the outcomes of that challenge. And of course, the ongoing story around this, I thought it's been pretty amazing. A question for you. You've been in the industry, obviously as a reporter. You've seen a lot of things. Is there a specific kind of empowerment moment that's inspired you?
I think that any time as a journalist, when you look into the future of your industry and you see that some of the same pain points that you experienced in the field are going to be even more amplified in the age of automation and AI, to me, keeps me up at night is how can I make this future better? So at NPR, and I'm also currently executive producer of audio podcasting at National Geographic. So that's my day job. But basically, I really want to make sure that we champion, again, diverse data sets so that the future of storytelling can be inclusive. I think, to be honest, that's what inspires me and motivates me. Beyond that, not to shock you, but I'm a mother of 8. So my husband and I have 8 children. I have 4 and he has 4. So we've raised 7 boys and 1 girl. I'm very proud of my children, and I feel like I'm doing this for their future.
Yes. Awesome. No, I have a feeling you never sit still. You're always on the go. And actually, just the few minutes we're all together right now, I feel all of you are just ambitious and continuously are moving and continuing to do things. So this is great. Ariel, so, you know, you mentioned your father, you mentioned, you know, CIO piece and getting into tech. What would be some advice you might give your younger self?
Oh, goodness. You know, I think that Lynn maybe said it well in her interview, is just get in there. I think that when I think when I look back, one of the things that for me growing up, you know, it might sound strange because my dad was a CIO, but he was super busy and had to travel a lot. And when I was actually in school growing up, I didn't see a lot of other representation of women in computer engineering or scientific fields. And so it just wasn't something that even dawned on me as like, oh, this is an area that I can play. And I think that, you know, when I look back and I think of different opportunities of things that I might have even enjoyed when I was younger, it's like just an example of like, get in there, start playing. Like my example at Target Corporate, I was kind of thrust into my first tech role. You know, I happened to be there and I was like, all right, well, this is my responsibility now. I got to do it and try and do it the best I can. And, you know, I think, you know, you learn, you know, you might have some hard knocks, you pick yourself up and you just keep going. And I think that once you start doing that, I think one of the things that I've had a great benefit of my entire journey, like my education, my work career, my life, is that I think you realize that if you start trying, there's a lot of people that are out there that want to help you succeed. and learn, you know? And I love that. I love that about Topcoder as a company too, is I feel like I can go to anyone and be like, hey, what is this? I want to learn a little bit more. And you know, there's always room for opportunity. There's always room for growth, and you just got to get out there and, you know, try different things.
Yep. Yep. Seeta, so, you know, you found Topcoder, obviously maybe some interest in design and technology. So kind of what motivated you to find Topcoder and or like what's your interest in design?
I think again, because like I said, it's about how would I try to put it simply? Okay, this is probably a little bit sensitive, but I was about to go to university, but we cannot afford it. So for me, it was a monetary, money is quite like a factor for me. I was like, I should work, you know, I tried to do some work, but it's education is very expensive there. So I was thinking like there must be a way that I could be making like a side income that I can also educate myself. My parents is very supportive, but it's just the financial is not really at the right time at the moment before. So when I discovered Topcoders, I find first it's about the financial gain that I'm thinking about it. Like, great, I can do this beside like between studying and doing this in the evening. And beside, I love designs anyway. And it's just escalated from there. You know, I'm getting better. Competition is tough. It's hard. But then with the feedback from clients and from you at the time a lot, and telling me like, what did I wrong? How should I improve it? You know, it helps me getting better and getting better every day. And by the end of the day, I'm able to graduate. I have to say thanks to Topcoder because it's pretty much helped me with my payment for the educations. And I also pay for my sisters, my brother's education as well. So all of us, I have to say, it's all from Topcoder's help, which I find would be impossible if I was just relying on what is a woman like me supposed to be able to gain over there. Like I said, I'm coming from a country where this is all privilege. So I understand in Western countries, it's all about equal pay and inclusivity and political and everything. But where I come from, it's even far worse than that. So it's kind of sad for me because educations, and all of these things, it's elevate the entire family, not just this one person, you know. But still, I mean, that's not really what they think so far over there. So I would like to challenge. That's exactly this year's. They said choose the challenge. I like to challenge. I mean, as much as I can do is my friends, my family circles that telling me like, no, if you want to give the best gift to your children, to your families, it's education. Give them tools so that they can survive on their own. Don't let them to be ties in this society and stigma. We as a women should be just stay at home, just be like cooking in the kitchen. No need for aim high. Don't be so ambitious. You know, I like to challenge them. That's the best I can do right now because I am not as powerful as I wish I would, but at least that's what I do. I tell them like this is what you can give to your children, educations. This is what will change them after that. So that's pretty much so. It's money at the very beginning, but in the end, it does help me to become what I am today. I'm doing things that I love so much. I'm whatever hobbies that I'm doing, and at the same time, I'm also helping my entire families to move forward. So.
Awesome. Thank you. You know, and the theme this year is choose the challenge, as you were talking about that, it definitely made me think about that. And then also, you know, Seeta, I just want to let you know you do continue to push us around here. So thank you for having a strong voice and reminding all of us where we need to continue to push, you know, in the community. Colleen, you know, you mentioned hackathons. You know, being a woman at a hackathon, I imagine, you know, there's probably some gender specific challenges with that. Is there anything you can kind of tell, like, you know, in your hackathon circuit days of like some of the things that you needed to overcome and how you kind of handled that?
All right. So a lot of the time I didn't have much of an issue, but you just have to be very comfortable in male dominated spaces. So it would be pretty common that I'd be in a room of 100 people and there might be one other woman. And usually it was kind of good because, for one thing, never a line for the women's bathroom. Like, you can get in there. It's great. I used to use it as pitch practice right before presentation because there's no one there. It's Colleen's private room. Other than that, there were occasionally some jerks. Like, there was one time I had a hackathon teammate. It was actually the first hackathon I ever won. And I had a teammate who afterwards, we were discussing whether to move forward, and he kept on interrupting and like overriding my views. And I was the primary coder on this project. So I started internally counting every time he interrupted me and comparing it internally to when he would interrupt, because I'd done it with a colleague from my internship, when he would interrupt my colleague. And after I got a little fed up, I explained to him, like, hey, you've interrupted me, I believe it was 33 times in the past 10 minutes. But you haven't been interrupting other people. Why are you only interrupting me? And he responded by saying, well, why don't you be a little bit more ladylike? Which was absolutely hilarious. Like, because at that point, he kind of became my spite motivation. Every time I did a hackathon from then on, it's like, I'm going to crush him. He wasn't at any of these other hackathons, but mentally it gave a face to my enemy.
Right.
Well, maybe not enemy, but my main competition. So what I'm saying is it provided motivation, a great private rehearsal space, and one last thing, which I think was actually the best part, is when there's only one or two other women in a room, you sometimes flock together. And so the sense of companionship, it made it a lot easier to make friends because I would befriend one of the other women pretty quickly. Yeah. And it was always great and supportive, and we found ways to open up spaces and open the door behind us. Like, a lot of the people that I met in hackathon days, we started getting on committees for hackathons, becoming organizers and judges, and trying to make places as inclusive as possible. And now when you go to a hackathon, I believe Major League Hacking's report, you're now closer to like 30% women in those spaces.
Which is awesome. Yes. And I think, just like mentioned earlier, more women in Topcoder, more women at our events, more champions, right? So.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's one thing that I wanted to share was back in that conference in Geneva, the group that we were considering working with that does crowdsourcing, they were 90% male. And that's why he said, go to Topcoder. Not that you're 90% women, but my point is that if we don't bring a heart-centered leadership approach to inviting women to these spaces around data and hackathon, we're not doing our jobs. And so that's one thing that I've appreciated about Topcoder is that from Andy Lamora to Clinton to Miles, so many in your community, they've been very welcoming of me. And I think that we have to be much more welcoming to women who don't come from a data background, but still have really amazing solutions, making this space safer, making it a space where we're not, telling Colleen, why can't you be ladylike? In fact, going out of our way to not want to be the smartest person in the room. And I think this is the issue. Men don't have to always be the smartest person in the room. They don't have to only come to the space and say, I want to solve this problem. I'm not interested in your heart-centered leadership. No, if you want to be inclusive, you know that women bring a different value add to the space. And then, as you see, stepping back, so much bias in AI algorithms now is because there have only been majority white guys working in the background, okay? Just let go. Like, the guys need to just let go and welcome us more. And I think that's going to be very helpful. I don't know what you all think, Ariel or Seeta or Colleen.
Yeah, Davar, that jumped out to me. It was playing, I think, a little bit off of what I was talking about before too, where I think that as a guy, you don't have to always be the smartest person in the room. It's kind of assumed, like Colleen, building on your example too, they know what they're talking about more, and that's maybe why the other guy didn't get as many questions or interrupted as much as you did. And I think that this has been a strange thing I personally have had to struggle with my whole life, coming from not a technical background. When I first started getting into this role and getting into technology and product management, I often felt like I had imposter syndrome. I was at this table with, again, a majority men, came from computer engineering backgrounds, deep technologists, and they're incredibly intelligent. And I was like, what am I doing here? And I did know at the same time that I was bringing value. I was bringing a different perspective, which was also important. But it's hard to get past that point of feeling like you're an imposter. And I think the more that companies, entities, groups, and just people strive to, foster inclusivity, the diversity of ideas that can come from that and perspectives, like, again, using the AI example, is amazing. We get a more rounded perspective on a better solution and what it is to be people when we do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Seeta, can you share a little bit more about that, about how men can make it more welcoming? I know we talked about Topcoder is that way, but are there any examples that you could use of where you've seen that and it's really motivated you to do more?
He speaks about how Topcoders community right now, or out of the companies.
Maybe you could get a little closer to the computer. Or Colleen, I was just asking if there are examples of situations where men in the coding community have been more welcoming in their approach and how that helps you do your job better.
Sure. I have a community of women in tech that I'm pretty active with. And one discussion we were having the other day actually was, if you are having difficulty getting your voice heard, it's really, really helpful to bring in a man from your team to just silently back you up.
Yeah.
Just have someone there who says, hey, can you let Colleen finish what she was saying? Or, Ariel, that was an excellent point. Can you expand on that? Just having someone welcoming and validating your ideas, if they think they're good, is really helpful. And I think that that's something that, in my experience at Topcoder, has been really great, and that I hope everyone can get moving forward.
Yeah, I agree with that, Colleen. I feel like it's a little bit of a double-edged sword, because it's like, oh, we shouldn't have to have men like back up what we're saying to prove that it is valid. But that advocate role is important regardless of, kind of like, I feel like if it's a man or a woman, if it's somebody that's in an established position, that advocate role is super important. I'm in a master's program right now, and one of my professors, I feel like, is exceedingly gifted at playing an advocate role. And the way that he does it is, let's say I've made a point and, nobody kind of acknowledges it and moves on. And then somebody else, typically because my program is a master's in technology and science, it's a lot of guys again still. Maybe one of my male classmates makes the same point, and then all of a sudden heads start nodding, and they're like, oh yeah. And my professor will be like, well, yeah, so you're building off of that point that Ariel made about 5 minutes ago, and I think it's that acknowledgement and advocacy of, it's just like subtly like acknowledging people for the points that they make and making sure to be intentional and, listening and hearing people's thoughts to completion. It's kind of like the, kindergarten rules of let's play nice and hear each other out, but it all matters, and make sure that we all get kind of acknowledged and heard.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you, Ariel, and thanks, Davar, for bringing that up in the questions. Seeta, I'm not sure if you heard what the question was, but I think you probably have a unique experience, culturally, but wondering where, I would say with the Topcoder community, do you feel that you have support, but not just you have support from other men, from other cultures, and it's not necessarily just, it's the ability to do what you need to do to get the work done, but also grow and learn, but have that support. And I think that's where Davar, that's kind of what you're asking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I could add, probably in Topcoder's design community, because I am like a design platform, the support has been tremendous between each other. Like I find it strange because it's a competitive platform. We're supposed to be like mean towards each other, like, oh no, but no, not in Topcoder. This is what I find really, really strange. People are helping each other. Even like one designers are like helping me, like telling me like, this is what you do. This is why you keep losing. I'm just like, really? Like you're sharing me this chunk of gold information, but he doesn't seem mind to it. So I think Topcoder's design community is really, really positive. People are cheering each other achievements, and that's, I think, helping like people, especially like we're talking about gender right now. I feel so inclusive in here, and I would like this to be expanded, like reaching out more female members in the future to not be afraid. Topcoder is such a great place for you to spread your wings, really.
Yeah, that's one of the things that always surprises me across Topcoder is just this ability of helping each other, no matter of gender. It's community, but it's also like by helping you're maybe taking money away from me. That blows my mind, right? So it's competition, but it's friendly competition, and it just makes you wonder if that could spread, right? If the ability to share that and not have it be so, no, it's about me, and it's about the money that I can earn, or it's about my achievement, right? So yes, that's one of the things that always surprises me, and I'm always very happy about, and would love to know how to spread that more. So Davar, do you have any women that have inspired you in your career?
Sure. I mean, I think fundamentally for all of us, man or woman, that our parents in our lives. And my mom, who passed away in October 2020 of a rare blood disorder during COVID, where it was very difficult to see her. She was an exemplary scholar, an amazing mother, and she always encouraged me never to be afraid to, forge ahead with, anything that was passionate to me. Through my NPR career, she was always very supportive. And she was one of the first American women to translate the Quran into English. She had a feminist translation of the Quran. And you can imagine in that space how much, hate and mail and death threats she got. But I think that it was really her very humble approach to creativity and to being close and loving to your family, but also being true to your own spirit. And so I have my mom's spirit. I miss her every day. And I thank you for asking me.
Thank you. Thank you. Colleen, is there a woman that's inspired you in your career?
Oh, yeah. So I don't know if any of you on this panel know this about me, but I essentially grew up in a science lab. Neither of my parents are scientists, but my best friend growing up, her mom was, and still is, ran a pharmaceutical lab, a small one, in our hometown. And so instead of going to after-school daycare, which was the most boring place on the planet, I would go to Pharmachem, the lab, with Abby after school quite often. And her mom, Fran, basically told me over and over to fight your way up, never let someone tell you that you're not smart, and just try. Put an effort and don't let yourself be convinced that everyone knows better than you do. You have a leg up. Because one thing that Fran has told me is the world will tell you that you are not smart and you are not meant to be here. But the world is wrong. If you think you're meant to be somewhere, and you just have to make it happen. You just have to try your hardest and don't let it get you down. And thank you for asking me that. Fran Fensali, best person on the planet.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Ariel, is there a woman who has inspired you?
Well, outside of Fran,
Right?
Davar's mom. Yeah, I have a lot of women who've been inspiring to me for different reasons. I think the core I go back to is my mom again too. Very different reasons. So my mom didn't work the whole time I was growing up. But the reason she inspires me so much, and I feel like I try to embody her spirit, is my mom had a pretty serious brain injury. She was in a car crash and was in a coma for 12 weeks. And when she came out, the doctors originally told our family she's not going to have intelligence beyond a 5-year-old again. So that's pretty significant. But my mom is as stubborn as an ox, and she's like, the world is not going to get me down. I am going to keep trying every single day to do better. I'm going to learn to walk. I'm going to learn to read, and I'm going to learn to speak again. And if you met her today, you would have no idea that she has a brain injury as significant as what she does. And it's because she is stubborn and she perseveres and says, you know, kind of like Colleen and what Fran said, the world might say, this is the box that you have to sit in and play in. But you know what? If you just are stubborn and you persevere and you keep trying and believe in yourself, you're going to get there. And I think that that's like a philosophy that I try to keep with me is, you know, you might fall down, you might get knocked down, you might be told, no, you can't, but just keep trying and you're going to get there.
Wow. Thank you for sharing. Thank you.
Yeah.
Seeta, is there a woman in your life that's inspired you?
Well, this is probably a little bit different. I don't have a woman that I find a little bit of inspiring me like on my family circles, unfortunately, because it's actually my dad who is pushing everyone, not my other family, female relatives that are pretty much like, why send her to university? So sadly, I don't have female family like around me that is I find really inspiring. However, I do have women that is cis Indonesian ministry, ex-ministry maritime. So she defy all the social stigmas. She's like, no, like I'm doing whatever like you guys tell me not to. And she's rising up and she is pretty much exemplary for every woman in Indonesia, like, you know, screw man, you know, do things, like get educated, like get a job, like don't listen to them, like do your things. And I think she's pretty much a very, very respected women in Indonesia that people look up at her, and she's pretty much a sign of rebellious against the society as a woman in my country.
Awesome. And now you did say so your father also inspires you, right?
Yes.
So I did meet him. So in Indonesia, I did meet Seeta's father, and I've been to her farm, which is an amazing place in itself. And so I could definitely your father is an amazing man. Although I think you've joked for years about, you know, the pressure to get married, right? To have a family, but you've been doing things at your own pace, doing things the way you want to do things. So I think, you know, for everyone here, just to realize that that's an inspiration also.
Yeah. And maybe to that point, when I was starting my career at NPR, I could either go on the reporter route or producer route. And I consciously chose producer because, in fact, being behind the scenes, you have more time to, you know, if I wanted to have a family and raise children. And so I think that even within the technology community, there's roles that women can pick depending on, you know, how much, emphasis they want to put on different parts of their career. So being in technology does not mean that you can't get married and have children. I think the most important thing is to find a partner who is supportive, because the second your partner isn't supportive is when it becomes very difficult. So it has, you know, those also are very challenging. Also patriarchal views. So I have definitely had family members who have indirectly made fun of, you know, like, why do you think you know anything about this, or you don't know anything about that? And sometimes that can get to you. But I think that the bottom line is that for many of us, we put our head down, we work really hard, we're humble, and we learn from others, and we also nurture others. And I think that's been one thing that has, for me, been very rewarding, is to give back at the same time that I ask others for help.
Thank you. Do any of you have questions for each other?
Can you tell me maybe what you're working on? I'm just interested in what kind of projects you're working on at Topcoder. Maybe briefly, I could learn about what Ariel or Seeta or Colleen are doing.
Sure, I'll kick off because my answer is probably the shortest, I guess. Colleen and Seeta are going to have a lot more fun ones. So, support the Topcoder platform itself, and typically we look at our platform as kind of a two-sided marketplace experience, right? So we have our business clients and how do we address their needs, and then the freelancer experience. So I work on the business client side. So I'm focused on trying to develop the features that are right to enable Davar getting your requests and easily getting them fulfilled, having the right collaboration tools, having the right report, like all of that stuff that's going to make your life easier from that perspective. It's kind of my wheelhouse at Target. Or at Topcoder. I need to go to Target later, apparently.
Cool. Colleen?
I have a bunch of different projects at Topcoder now, but there are two that I think are the coolest. One of them was with our old friend Lynn from earlier today, and that's the NASA Lunar Image Project. And basically, NASA has a bunch of pictures of the moon, and for many, many years, and they want to know how the moon's been changing. So at Topcoder, we are building a solution to basically go through all the pictures and determine which ones are different and how. It's really cool. It's one of my favorite calls each week because the NASA team is incredibly detail-oriented and smart, and I just feel like I learn so much from them every time. And my other favorite project is a hardware project for a client, for another client, a telecom client. And basically, the end goal of this project is to create a drag and drop system for kids to be able to program their own hardware projects. And it was inspired by our client's daughter, who also named the project Ringbeller after her favorite BFG character, or not character, I think it's a dream that they call in the BFG. So the best dream you could have. So his 10-year-old named the project and is the main audience. But she wanted to be able to code something by herself to catch her sister snooping in her room. And so she made the presentation to her dad's company on why this should be a thing that kids should be able to do. And now it's in progress at Topcoder.
Nice. That's amazing.
That's awesome.
I love that project started by her trying to safeguard her room from her sister. That is amazing.
As someone with an older brother, it's very important to safeguard your room. So don't mess it up.
Yeah, I want to definitely hear from Seeta, but I just want to say that when you talk about there are many, many pictures of the moon, there are not many data sets on women. Okay? So I'm trying to do the opposite. We're not NASA, we're a tiny little startup, but we're trying to say, can we have millions of data sets on women? Because that would really be cool in creating, so many products and solutions geared towards women. Another thing that came out as a result, around the same time as we were doing the Topcoder Challenge in July, was on June 29th, MIT put a apology up on their website because they had to take down their 80 million tiny images data set. They had to take it down because women had been tagged as whores and their private parts with the C, and African Americans has been tagged as N-word. This is the MIT 80 million images data set. And they took it down and they apologized because they said it's too much work to go back and retag everything. So again, there is such a dire need for more moons of women. And so that's where I'm coming from. But let me hear from Seeta and then Adam. I'm sure we're running out of time.
Oh, we're getting there. We're good. We're getting there though.
Okay.
I'm not I used to be a competitor, and right now I've been expanding slowly to become a co-pilot because I like to challenge myself, So I'd like to see, like, from the other side, how does it deal with the clients and the project managers. So not much that I've been doing lately, but the last project that I'm handling is to creating the app for top coders for the gig workers. So like clients can directly with the selected members there. So that's pretty much, and it's really, really nice experience. Maybe at one point I'd like to go back to competitor again because I like the rush of the adrenaline. Is like once you're a competitor, it's just nice to see like you saw how you are in the game again. So maybe at one point I will be shifting back again. So but right now I'm just like trying new things to expand my knowledge.
Amazing. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, thank you for sharing, everyone. There's a question. One of the questions I was thinking about was women in leadership. So, we just saw NASA, and I've been around a lot of women that have been leaders in my life and throughout my career. But I definitely think there is there's obviously more need for more women leaders. Any thoughts on women leaders and just the need for that, or the ability to push or put more women in leadership roles. I mean, I think it's pretty amazing that we now have a vice president, a female vice president. Someday we'll have a female president, but if there's any thoughts about women in leadership from any of you?
So I'll take this one first, I guess. So I definitely agree that representation matters. The more examples that you can see of, diverse people or people that look like yourself in these different positions, it kind of is like, I can do that too, right? On the simplest level. However, I think one of the things for me where I think I've seen it evolving and changing over time is I've had the experience of working with women in leadership positions in past companies. However, the one thing that I've noticed is kind of this cultural thing, at least historically, where because there's so few positions, the higher you go, number one, I think more women tend to, at least in the past, drop off because of family or kids. And then also, I think that at least what I've seen is like when you get to that funneled position where there's so few positions available, the women leaders that I had in the past were kind of, instead of building each other up or trying to raise up the future generations, they were kind of in that competitive mode of having to, knock each other down or make sure they stay in the spot that they have. I think that's changing over time. And I think that's actually been more of a lesson for me in my early career of what is the example of the kind of leader I don't want to be for the future. I think that one of the things that we've talked about a lot here that's great about Topcoder and the design track as an example is, they're so supportive and uplifting of each other and wanting, that mentorship and people to grow and succeed in what they're doing here or where they might go to next. And I think that as I look towards the future, I hope that we see women in, more leadership positions. I think that we're getting as a society, at least in the US and the West, to where people, don't have to make the choice between kids and like a family life and jobs. And, I think that we're slowly evolving to that point where, I think the culture is let's uplift each other more, across the board.
Yeah, I'm so thankful that you brought that up because there's a very high-powered woman who I've had the honor to work with for many years, but told me, why would I train my replacement? Because I asked her, why aren't you lifting more people up, And so that goes to what you're saying, because it was very hard for her to get where she got. And so she's not going to train her replacement. I have the complete opposite attitude with wherever I have gone. And I think that, Ariel, I completely agree. I think the way we lift women up and bring them more in leadership positions is to not be competitive and to be more collaborative and know that it's, for the good of every industry to have more female executives. And also in the context of AI, Stephen Hawking talked about the need to pause and think about beneficial AI. And I think in the corporate world, it's the same. There are people who are pausing and looking back and looking at their industries and saying, would we be better served to have more women in leadership roles?
Yeah, and I think
makes me think about the.
Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
go ahead.
I think part of it is for a while, people thought, oh, we have one woman. Oh, we're diverse. We did it, guys. Sexism solved. But it's not how it works. One woman's not enough. Some of the women who were worried that they may have been training their replacement may have been right, because the systems that they were in could have thought, oh, we have this one token woman. We only need one. When if we open it up and we make it so it's not a woman by woman thing. It's not oh, we've got one woman, we're done. It's oh, we've got an equitable system. We have room for people to grow. It's not a fight to the death, woman versus woman. It's everyone trying to make it the best. And that's where I think we as a society need to go.
Yes. Yeah, agree. Davar, when you were mentioning that, it did make me think about the data that you're working on. It's just even understanding that data, right? Just the ability to understand if the data around women in leadership, and just like what that could tell us, and then also tell other women how they could help, continue to grow leadership roles, right? As opposed to what you're saying, like, why would I train my replacement?
Yeah.
And just knowing that data, right, would be impactful.
Yeah, exactly. And the role that conversational AI and voice can have is very powerful, because voice is growing, the voice industry is growing. And so you could be sitting on your couch and talking to Alexa or Google Home and, ask them, tell me about, women in Ethiopia in the field of data or AI, and, just for entertainment, for education. And I think that we really should, as a society, come together and cherish the power that we have, and not only focus on the consumerism and the capitalism. And I think that compassionate side of our societies, especially post-COVID, have to come together. And in fact, like a conversational AI storyteller fits beautifully in the concept of people being lonely during COVID and feeling isolated. There's a way to feel more connected, so that it's not just about the boring data, because as you know, the second you bring up data, people are bored, but it's about turning data into storytelling and being able to apply metadata and tagging in appropriate ways through a relational database graph to understand these relations. And then, through the power of storytelling, share it more widely. So I think just like you all think of user-centered design in everything you do, I'm also thinking of that end product. That's something that is user-friendly and is engaging, and that's something that, Adam could have. I don't know if you have kids, Adam, or nieces or nephews, but, you could have your family members use and feel that they're delighted or enchanted by a story that they're here that they would never have before.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I think we have a few minutes left. My last question to everyone is, what does International Women's Day mean for you as we celebrate today?
I think for me, it's an opportunity just to hear other stories. One of the things that's tough for me is like, I don't like when I'm asked to speak on behalf of all women, because my experience is my own. Seeta's is her own, Colleen, Davar, you're all your own. And I think the more that I'm just able to hear stories, again, going to the AI piece and then from somebody I would have never heard, I think that I love that opportunity. It's an intentional, day to hear stories from other women and hear their perspectives.
Awesome, thank you.
For me, it's more a reminder at least as we women, let's fix each other crown. Let's not drag us and empower each other, like reminding each other, like you can do great things. Just stop this about this whatever, like their genders, like the reasons why you cannot do things. That's, I think, because the issues is not just with the male, like I'm telling you my experience, it's actually my female families that's dragging me down, telling me that I don't need education, it's unnecessary. So I can tell this is actually, it's like vicious environment between females each other sometimes in my countries, because I speak on my culture. So I think as a female, let's empower each other, fix the crown for each other, not drag them down.
Thank you. Thank you, Seeta. Colleen or Davar?
All right. For me, I think that it's all about learning, like Ariel said, learning about the stories of others, and but also reflecting on the ways that we've improved as a society, moving forward. The career I have would have been impossible 60 years ago. Women couldn't even open checking accounts until the 70s. And we've come a long way from that. And there are still things that we can fix, still things we can work on. And I think today is just a day of celebrating the progress we've made while looking forward at what we can do next.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe just combining the thoughts of all three of you, that the late Katherine Johnson represented maybe in figures, but what we want to represent is, a happy and healthy future for women where we're not hidden, where we're contributing members. And I think that when I think at what Katherine Johnson accomplished, and the community that she created of coders, that's the one that I want us to see bring back. Like, I want us to bring back her community and celebrate each other, so that there's no shame, in education, there's no shame in progress and innovation, and that we can be recognized for our work, but also feel holistic as women.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate everyone's time today, sharing your stories. I'm humble to be here with you, and thank you for everything that you've shared today. And I've been seeing some comments over in the chat. I think everyone's been very inspired by what you've had to offer and share. So thank you. And I think we'll close out now. Appreciate
Thank you.
Thank you
all
so
of you.
Thank you, everyone.